Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, August 1st. Welcome to a new month, 5:26 a.m. Central Time. December corn futures down 1.5 at 398 and a quarter. November soybeans down 3 1/4 at 1019 and a quarter. December Chicago wheat up 1.5 at 553 and a half. December Kansas City wheat up a quarter cent at 566. December spring wheat up 3.5 at 604 and a half. Let's start off with this USDA acreage news.
USDA will review all available FSA acreage data with regard to corn, soybeans, and other crops when compiling its August crop production and WASDE report. In the past, USDA had not begun to incorporate the FSA data into its monthly reports until September or October. Farmers are required to certify their acres with FSA by July 15th, which means that NASS has almost 1 month to review a good chunk of the data. Some data, of course, will be received late.
A lot of people have a lot of problems with the acreage numbers, especially this year, considering the some of the flooding that occurred in parts of Minnesota, parts of northern Iowa. Um, Here's the question. So we're going to get some of this data earlier. Usually the FSA data is incorporated in September or October. The question with regard to those flooded acres in particular is this: were they actually zeroed? How many of them were actually zeroed? And if they were zeroed, you'll see it appear, I suppose, in the harvested acreage number. I think a lot of it will be just bad yield losses, and you'll see, areas that yield well below average because of the flooding. So that's one of the question marks. They're going to review this stuff in September and again in October. So this is a little bit of a methodology shift, I suppose. Usually they wait till September, but they do have the majority of the data by July 15th. I suppose that there's probably some time that goes into data entry and compiling this stuff in the modern era, given computer technology and stuff. You'd think it'd be pretty quick. So they're going to use what they have in addition to some survey data to potentially spit out some new numbers. Acreage, just generally speaking, is the most frustrating part of USDA reports. A lot of the stuff we can kind of, I'm not going to say predict, but we can at least analyze. We can analyze the pace of export sales. We can analyze the pace of ethanol production. Acreage is just something that's almost impossible to analyze. And in these reports, the acreage numbers very often just come up and slap you in the face out of nowhere. So this will be interesting. Certainly, I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know if there's any big adjustments that are warranted. Let me know what you guys think.
December corn futures fell below the $4 per bushel mark yesterday. Additional selling pressure began to emerge when the contract fell through the prior low of 403. Traders are eyeing the potential for a record U.S. national corn yield, large farmer ownership, and sluggish new crop export demand. Fund traders were estimated to hold a net short position of 360,000 contracts at yesterday's close.
I don't know exactly how much farmer ownership there is of old crop bushels, 2023 bushels. I think it's pretty sizable, though. Not only is there a lot of old crop corn sitting on the farm, there's a lot of unpriced old crop bushels sitting in commercial facilities on basis contracts or DP or whatever. August 30th is first notice day for September grain futures. And in the days preceding August 30th, anybody who's got those sort of contracts with grain that's already been delivered, they will be forced again to make a decision. Do you price it or do you roll it? So it's like you're going to have a whole bunch of bushels that could hit the market in the next, call it 3 or 4 weeks. And then, of course, you've got harvest coming up just weeks after that. I mean, the early stuff's going to start in September. So there's a lot of grain that's going to have to be priced here in the next few months, which is, it's difficult to deal with from a pricing standpoint. If we've got that much grain that needs to be sold, both old crop and then new crop, the market's going to have a difficult time rallying. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It just feels like it's going to be an uphill battle without some sort of change in the fundamental situation.
Heavy winds may have damaged crops in eastern Nebraska and western Iowa late yesterday. Reports indicated that winds in excess of 80 miles an hour ripped through areas east of Omaha and toward Des Moines. Information regarding possible crop damage, of course, is lacking early this morning. Additional rainfall pushed over parts of Missouri, Minnesota, and Illinois early this morning.
I don't know what if there was any damage or what sort of damage was observed. This is too recent, and I don't have enough information. If you guys are in these areas, if you're between Omaha and Des Moines, and you saw these heavy winds, let us know on YouTube here. What did you guys see? I heard some stuff that winds were like above 100 miles per hour in some areas. I don't know if there were tornadoes or not, so I'm just telling you what I know early this morning. It was accompanied by some rain, and there's some rain on the radar here again this morning over Illinois, parts of Minnesota, kind of scattered. looking at the forecast, rains are going to favor the eastern Corn Belt and also Minnesota, northern Iowa over the next 5 days, and then a little bit more broad over the next 10 days. This wind thing is another weather anomaly, although I don't know if we can keep calling them anomalies since they seem to happen so often as of late. Here's the temperatures real quick. So you're going to run into some cooler stuff early next week. Southern part of the country is still going to be slightly above normal, along with Illinois and Indiana, places like that, but it's not enough to be a big deal. You're talking a couple degrees above normal on average.
U.S. lawmakers want to restrict imported feedstocks from receiving biofuel tax credits. More than a dozen senators signed on to the request in a letter sent to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. In the letter, the senators asked Yellen to issue final guidelines for the 45Z tax credit before January 1st, when it is scheduled to take effect. They requested that the tax credit only apply to renewable fuels produced from domestic feedstocks. According to the senators, the current 40B tax credit, which is set to expire at the end of this year, is inadequate because domestically produced ethanol isn't able to meet its requirements.
This is a quote from the letter from this group of senators, and this sums up this situation. Allowing U.S. tax credits to fund the importation and use of foreign feedstocks to produce biofuels would put U.S. agriculture at the back of the line, while foreign agricultural producers are subsidized by U.S. taxpayers. Absolutely, 100%. This should have been dealt with months and months ago. 45Z should have been dealt with months and months ago. The senators, God bless them, they're behind the curve by months. They should have been pushing a long time ago, and they're finally getting around to it, I guess, which is incredibly frustrating to me. And yeah, these foreign ag outlets, whoever it is, Chinese fraudulent used cooking oil, it's being subsidized essentially by the U.S. taxpayer and by U.S. farmers. It's not a good situation.
So if you guys haven't checked out our premium content, you sure need to do so. Joe, can you tell me about yesterday's video with Brian Splitt?
Brian Splitt is a chart celebrity. He's a chart all-star, and he was on yesterday. Ran corn charts, soybean charts, wheat charts, cattle charts, hog charts. If you're not watching what Brian is saying and what he's been saying for the last several months, you are very, very much missing out. You're either in or you're out when it comes to this info. And if you're not seeing it, you need to be seeing it. Go to standardgrain.com, subscribe this morning. It's a $50 per month subscription. You can cancel at any time, no other fee, no other obligation. Nobody will try to sell you anything else. Sign up this morning, and I'll send you a copy of this morning's email. Give that deal a shot today, guys.
Airlines are ditching climate goals due to a lack of sustainable aviation fuel. The slow production of SAF jets is also causing airlines to scrap their emissions goals. Air New Zealand recently abandoned its 2030 emissions goal, and if more airlines continue to do the same, investment in SAF production will likely decline. The production of SAF has already slowed due to high costs, limited feedstocks, and inconsistent policy support. According to the International Air Transport Association, global supply of SAF will only be 0.5% of the total requirements for this year.
Yeah, so it's basically nothing. And we need, again, the government guidance. Boeing and Airbus can't make jets fast enough. Boeing is under pressure from regulators, and they have slowed output to improve quality. Airbus is so stretched, it's even turning down orders. So while next generation jets can consume 15 to 20% less fuel, wait times to get them delivered are years long. So it's looking less likely that a lot of these 2030 climate goals are going to be hit. And then that means that if you don't hit those, maybe the 2050 climate goals aren't hit either. A lot of this has kind of gone backwards recently.
U.S. ethanol production was record high last week. Weekly output of 1.1 million barrels equaled the prior record posted back in October 2021. Ethanol stocks were pegged at 24 million barrels. The print was up 1.1% compared to the previous week and up 3.2% compared to the same week last year. Implied gasoline demand was down 2.2% compared to the previous week, but up 3.5% versus the same week last year. On average, over the last 4 weeks, implied U.S. gasoline demand is up 2% compared to the same period last year.
So that's a tie for the best ethanol production number on record. I think it was sometime in 2021. Very good numbers. Corn prices have gotten cheaper, which means margins for the ethanol producer has gotten a little bit better. This is very much a bright spot for demand with regard to U.S. corn. It's just that it doesn't expand a whole lot. USDA says we're going to be flat year over year when it comes to corn demand via ethanol.
USDA reported a flash sale of corn on Wednesday. U.S. exporters sold 4 million bushels of corn to unknown destinations for delivery during the 24-25 marketing year. Year to date, this is the third flash sale of corn to unknown destinations for the next marketing year, totaling 15 million bushels.
U.S. corn export sales for new crop delivery are not good. We're kind of toward the bottom of what we've seen over the last 10 years, and this is just an overall negative. To go back to what I said about ethanol, ethanol is pretty steady, feed's pretty steady. Exports are the number on the demand side of the ledger that can really move the needle. If you can tack on 200-300 million bushels and really get things moving, you can adjust the balance sheet, but we're just not seeing it. So we need to see more of these flash sales in bigger. 104,000 is not going to do much to help us.
Bunge's earnings sank during the second quarter. The company's earnings declined to $1.73 per share, the lowest level since the beginning of the pandemic. Earnings also missed analysts' expectations by 10%. Abundant global grain supplies and slow farmer sales have squeezed profits. The company's business segment, which handles grain merchandising, saw profits fall by 78% compared to last year. Profits from the trading and processing of oil seeds declined by 50%.
Bunge's stock looks better. We did ADM yesterday, and ADM stock had really fallen off. Bunge looks slightly better relative to the last 3 or 4 years. They haven't seen a big downtick in in share prices, at least. I mean, they're off the highs, but not by much. Again, as with ADM, I think Bunge will be just fine, but they may be a little bit tighter here for a minute. What did cattle do yesterday?
Cattle futures were mostly lower. Feeders were 95 cents lower to 27 cents higher. Live cattle were down 77 cents to 17 cents lower. Box beef was mostly unchanged yesterday. Choice ended the day at $314.77. That was up 29 cents. And select ended the day at $300.16. That was down $1.12.
Outside markets fairly quiet. U.S. dollars up a little bit. Stocks are marginally higher. Bonds are up. Gold's up $5. Crude oil is up 53 cents. And the September WTI at 78.44. Have a great day, guys. We'll talk to you on Friday.